something like
Yes.
that. Boswell voted for the war.
He voted for the war, he voted for additional funding, and he voted for funding that was not attached to a timetable for withdrawal.
And he voted for the Patriot Act.
Yes.
You voted for it.
Right, and I would have opposed it, and I would not support reauthorizing it unless it went through a significant transformation. I think it's an infringement of civil liberties the way it's currently structured. And on top of that, I mean, there was what was the name of this surveillance bill that passed this past September? Temporary amendment to the Surveillance Act. You know, Congressman Boswell joined King and Latham in voting for that, and I find that very hard to stomach.
He supported cafe standards that weren't as high as the ones that you supported.
Right. I think there was a bill that was proposed at, what, 27.5 miles per gallon? But I don't think you supported that. Is that right? Yeah. And we got to go a lot higher than that if we're going to begin to address the issue of.
What do you favor for cafe standards?
I can't give you a specific amount, but certainly 35 as a start. But I think we can go better than that. Certainly, if other countries can move along in that direction, we can do much better than 27.5.
How much of that base that you had when you ran as governor, do you think is, people have forgotten about you, or has it still been, do you think that'll come back? Or?
Well, given the response we've had since the caucuses, I don't think people have forgotten about me. We've had a few negative responses, but overall I'd say about 80–90% of the responses have been favorable. I should also point out, I think people remember that I won Polk County, but lesser known fact is I won the 3rd district too. Not by as big of a margin, but I did win in the 3rd district. And I think, you know, I've seen a lot of folks come forward. I've got a couple county chairs indicate their support for me. Many county chairs are staying out of it. A couple others are quietly supporting me, but they don't really want to get involved publicly. Again, the response has been really favorable here in Polk County, which is, in terms of the primary, it's about 75% of the vote in the primary. So
75% of the vote in the 3rd
70 to
district
75% of the primary
Democratic
vote in the 3rd district is Polk County. Yeah. It's in that range, and I think it's around 53 to 5% of the general vote, general election vote.
Okay.
So.
One of the questions some people are going to ask is, some Democrats are going to be asked, is if Boswell wins, will you support him in the general election against the Republican, or would you try to run independently? Or
no, if Boswell wins, I will support him in the general election, and I plan to ask him the same question. Yes.
When it comes to money, Congressman Boswell has about $600,000 raised so far. You've just opened your campaign account, I understand. So how are you going to kind of cross that divide?
Well, about 73% of that money that he's raised is from political action committees. That should be a huge red flag for anyone, and especially when these political action committees aren't. Some of them have very little. Most of them have very little connection to Iowa. That should be a big concern. I think it's being shown right now that you don't have to take money from PACs to win. Again, Obama and Edwards are the two most recent and phenomenal examples. I will raise money. I will raise a lot of money. I would rather not have to raise a lot of money. But our budget is $700,000, and I think we can do it.
But
Again,
you won't take any money from PACs.
I never have, as a matter of principle, and I never will. And I should have PACs or lobbyists. And not that there aren't some good lobbyists doing work on issues of social concern, but again, most of the PACs, most of the lobbyists are representing corporate entities that they want favors, they want payback, and they tend to get it. And I think we've got to draw the line. To me, the best place to draw the line is just to say no money from PACs or lobbyists. I can't remember when the first filing period is. Our treasurer isn't here today, but it's we will be able. I think we will impress you. I think we're going to have a very good showing in terms of fundraising. Again, I don't mind being outspent a bit. I was outspent 2-1 in '92. I was outspent again in 2002, 2-1, and I won both by almost 2-1 margins. So I can't remember now, but I think our mayor Frank County was outspent about 5-1 when he won his election. So you can still be outspent. Ideally, not too much. And I do plan to be very competitive with Leonard Boswell on money, but again, I'll feel really good about where mine comes from. I feel I would not want to be beholden to PACs and lobbyists, to the tune of 75% of my campaign fund.
And it was $700,000 you're planning to raise.
That's our budget. Yes.
Do you look at this as an uphill battle against Boswell? Well, he's been entrenched as a incumbent for a lot of years.
Well, yes, anytime you challenge an incumbent, it's an uphill battle, but this this grade seems a lot more level than the one I faced running for governor. I mean, I wasn't predicted to do that well. I got 26%, and I think that's created a level of viability that I might have not had otherwise. And yeah, this is a lot smaller district. Again, I won this district when I ran for governor. If I got all the votes that I did when I ran for governor, I wouldn't need that many more to win. So presuming that most of those folks are still going to be with me, it's a really good base. It's a really good position to be working from. That may be one reason why my impression is the congressman is concerned. And maybe another reason why there's a lot of national interest, growing national interest in this race. Because I think folks are tired of a Democratic Congress that is not always voting, with the Democratic platform.
I'd like to ask you a question about the economy, particularly since several individual business owners have felt there's been a recession for years, not just for a few months, and in the fact that women working full-time in Iowa still earn only 75% of what men working full-time earn, and part-time work's even worse in gender gap. How do you propose to increase the economy of the entire country and of your district, and to create gender balance in that income?
That's a big plate to fill. But let me just take that in the broadest sense, because it is a pretty broad question. My whole approach to economic development is, again, in contrast to Congressman Boswell, I would not be supporting so-called free trade agreements with Singapore and with most recently Peru and the fast-track fast-track legislation of a few years ago. That to me is economic development focused all wrong. It really is more payback to the big interests that are paying for the lobbyists and funding the campaigns. We need an approach to economic development that focuses on Main Street businesses. Again, businesses that are not going to pack up and leave. That's always been my focus. In the legislature, I worked with Republican colleagues on trying to slow down and bring some light to the Iowa Values Fund, which again I think is indicative of the problem. To me, yeah, we may be heading toward a recession, but the best way out of that is to create as much stability and diversity at the local level as possible. This just pops into my head. Let me reference something that's being discussed at the State House today. Governor Culver's proposal on the bottle bill. I like that. But here's how I would message that. I would say that bill is an economic development bill. And I mean that very seriously. If anybody has traveled around the state visiting redemption centers, those places are struggling. They were getting a penny per bottle or can back in the mid-'70s. That's like all of us having no wage increase, making the same wage we made back in the mid-'70s today. That bill should be regarded as a way to help save 1,000 jobs in the redemption industry and probably create some more ones. Those kinds of approaches, they aren't as expensive as a values fund approach or a NAFTA approach, which again has just devastated our manufacturing base.
So
and I think when you start,
you're opposed to that?
Yes, very much so. And I think when you start focusing economic development at the small level, the local level, then you can also start doing things like the state of Iowa has done, targeting grants and loans to small businesses that are run by women, that are run by minorities. I think pay equity, it's a challenge. We're having a hard time getting there, but I think, again, one way we could begin to move in that direction would be to do more to help startups that are run by women, run by minorities. And those are businesses that aren't going to pack up and move to Mexico. They're going to be here.
You've done a lot of praising of Senator Edwards and Senator Obama. Is that by way of criticizing Senator Clinton?
To me, she does more represent the status quo, and I think certainly I will support her if she wins the nomination. But I think she's going to be the toughest sell to the electorate as a whole this fall. So I'm still rooting for Edwards. I had to take a second pick, it would be Obama, but I wouldn't write John off yet. And I do think they do represent a certain type of approach to politics and an attitude of change that I don't think I feel or see in the Clinton campaign.
Just a bit of a strategy question, and your staff can feel free to answer this too.
Uh-oh, be careful, guys.
How do you think technology might play into your grassroots organization and maybe give you an advantage over an entrenched incumbent? I see you've got somebody here taping for YouTube.